Okay, Mike, welcome back. We are going to talk about Elon Musk or Elon Musk's ideas, or we'll figure that out as we go. But
This will not be a controversial episode at
not
all.
at all. Not at all. But before we do that, let's talk about follow up. So I told you last episode that I was not going to do this follow up by the next time we recorded. I have successfully not done my follow up by the next time we recorded. That wasn't the point.
I think you get a green check mark
Yeah,
then.
exactly. I told you what I was going to do. My follow up was, what's the sign I put in the engineering lab that communicates culture, the culture that I want? And my deadline for this is just by the time the semester starts. I want to have the sign up, and I'm going to actually probably make the sign on one of our carvers. So I'll get a big piece of wood and I'll actually carve it out and I'll make it look pretty fancy. So that's the goal, is I want to communicate the culture by essentially August 1st. That's kind of my deadline on this. So I don't know if you're with it enough to set a reminder. I probably won't remember, but maybe when we
That's
get around
okay.
August 1st, you can ask me about it. How about you? What was your
All right.
what was your first follow up item?
Find the opportunities for unreasonable hospitality in my business. I think I also said that I wasn't going to complete this one by next time either.
Yeah.
But I have been thinking about this. I don't have a concrete list of these are the ways that I want to do this, but I think the overall strategy is move more towards emphasizing the community as my signature product. So, not that Life HQ is going to go away, but that's not the thing that I talk about. I get people in the community, and then once they're in the community, it's sort of like you recognize it when you see it, sort of a thing. You can see someone asking a question and they are expecting, a short type of response. And so if I record a quick video and I walk through my answer, that's the kind of thing that people really love. I have done stuff recently, like when you join the library now, there's in the quick start guide, like the videos that walk you through how everything works. There's a link to schedule a welcome call with me, which is just like a 15-minute get to know you, how can I help sort of a thing. And I know for a fact I've done a handful of those calls already, that people absolutely love those, and they don't expect that when they join, which probably says something about my pricing, but that's okay. We'll figure out how to blow people's minds first, then we'll figure out what it's actually worth.
Yeah, that's funny.
But yeah, so I've been thinking about it, but nothing concrete as like this is exactly what I'm going to do as a result of reading that book. But it is on my radar, and it's a lot of fun to consider the possibilities for this sort of thing.
Yeah, I've been thinking about the unreasonable hospitality and just kind of like how it impacts different things. And that's one of those that kind of was, one of those stew in the back of your mind books. So it's been fun. That's cool. It's going to be cool to see how you implement it in your world through your creator stuff. So, all right. Well, let's get to our book today, the Book of Elon. Now this book is interesting, and we're going to, before we even get into like all the details of it, we need to talk about the notes on the book first, because it's an important
Yeah.
thing to understand the way this book was written. I'm intrigued because, Mike, I didn't read the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, so I don't know if it was written the exact same way. Like, you might have known what to expect here. I didn't, but here's what I'm talking about. There's a paragraph in this book where basically Eric Jorgenson, who's the author of this, also wrote the Almanac of Naval Ravikant, which we've done an episode on before. He explains the fact that like everything in this book are quotes from Elon Musk, but they are possibly like paraphrased or recontextualized, or like you basically have to hold them loosely. Like they get to the same gist of what Musk was trying to say. And he even says in here, I can't be certain of every source's authenticity, like their potential fakes, edits, misquotes. Like I almost read this and go, well, that's very honest and that's very authentic. And then I'm like, but how do I know that it's actually true? The caveat to that would be there are like over 1,000 citations for this book. Like, I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
is 20, 30 pages of citations for this book. So it's like he definitely did the work to go gather all these quotes, to go gather all these little clippings, to organize them in a way. But he does clarify at the very, very beginning, to create this book, I recontextualized ideas in an attempt to make it more accessible, useful, and memorable. And know that going in, that it's basically all of the Musk quotes and his ideas and where he's talked about them or written about them. But then Jorgenson has like kind of packaged them in a way that makes it more compelling to read. I guess that's the best way I can describe it.
Yep. Yeah, and the subtitle, I don't have the book in front of me, but it's something like Elon's best ideas in his own words.
Yeah. Elon Musk's most useful ideas in his own words. Yep.
Right. So they are cherry picking a bunch of different things. There's a section at the very beginning where he talks about I forget how he frames it. I didn't write it down. Well, I wasn't planning on going this direction necessarily. But if you disagree with the idea, how did he phrase it? He's like, all the mistakes are probably mine. All the great ideas are probably Elon's.
Yeah.
But it is humble. Like, you're interpreting what the person is saying. I think it works, to be honest. Yep. And this is kind of what the Almanac of Naval Ravikant is like as well. I felt like the Almanac of Naval Ravikant kind of got a little bit like it's just kind of got real far reaching in a bunch of different directions towards the end. This one felt a little bit more focused, like there was a single thread that pulled it all together. But also this one's much longer, and maybe that's because there's a lot of stuff to draw from that Elon has posted on social media. I think at the beginning I'll share here for people who are thinking like, well, this book is about a terrible person. Reserve judgment. And I'm not trying to defend Elon, but really let's just talk about the ideas, because I think he is a very brilliant person. Maybe some of the things he believes are a little bit crazy, but there are some really powerful ideas that are worth unpacking here. And actually, Naval kind of hits on that squarely in the foreword when we get there.
Yeah.
But
I was shocked about how little this book was about Elon and about how much it's about like the ideas he shares and like the way he approaches different things and thinks about things. Like, so it's not, I mean, there's a little bit of stuff in here that's like biography type stuff, but it's more to communicate an idea. It's less to like tell the story of Elon Musk. Like in my mind, that was not the nature of it.
Yeah. There's no narrative here. Yeah. It's really just, here's what Elon thinks about this. Here's what Elon thinks about this. Yeah. But again, it's packaged in a way that I think there's some good stuff here to unpack.
Yeah. So, okay. Getting in the pro show, we talked about authors we want to interview. This is a two-part question. One, Mike, who's the author of this book?
Eric Jorgenson.
No. Is Eric really the author, or is Eric the editor? Because
I would say he's the author, but I get what you're saying. Yeah, he's compiling all this information and putting it together. I can't think of another example of something like this other than the Almanac of Naval Ravikant to compare it to.
Yeah.
But there is a lot of writing that Eric does. He connects a lot of these random dots. I think that's the work of the writing. Illustrations by Jack Butcher, by the way, which are very cool. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Jack Butcher and his brand Visualize Value.
I'm not, no.
Okay, well, those illustrations that appear every so often, that's a very Jack Butcher style. I have a coffee mug that's inspiring to me because it's kind of like you got to do the thing over and over and over again, and then finally success comes, and it's like the hockey stick curve, but it's the really like tiny little lines, and all of a sudden at the end it goes way up. Yeah. Basically, every time I take a drink out of it, it's at the co-working space. It's a reminder to just keep going.
Just keep going. Yeah, just keep going. Okay, so would you want to interview Eric, or would you want to interview Elon?
I would more want to interview Eric than I would Elon.
Me too.
I feel like talking to Elon would be interesting, but it would be all over the place. This could be true. This could not be true. I don't know. But I feel like what Eric did here was a huge favor to Elon Musk, because I feel like what I see online with Elon is he's just like all over the place. And I can't handle those types of conversations. It's like, please just focus on what we're talking about. I think Elon would have trouble with that because his mind's going a million different directions all the time.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I would much rather interview Eric than I would Elon. But okay, let's move on to the forward. Okay, so the forward, as you alluded to earlier, as you stated earlier, was by Naval Ravikant, and basically, he's just trying to introduce the fact that the big pull I had out of here was Elon's methods are copyable in matters big and small. So like he's trying to motivate the idea of there is something here to the way Elon Musk operates, to the way this guy runs his life, and it's worth reading this book to try to figure out what those are and how they apply to you. I can tell you that like we're going to get there later, but like some of these things apply a lot more readily than others. Like there are some that I'm just like, wow, that's just not anything near my life, like multiplanetary, travel and the emphasis on that. But like there's other things that I was like, daggone it, like that's a really good principle and I need to think about how that incorporates into my life. So I think that's the main takeaway I got out of the forward. I don't know. It sounded like you had more that you wanted to talk about with the forward.
A little bit. So like Naval makes the case right at the beginning why you should read this book, like why Elon is a character that's worth paying attention to even if you don't like him. He says that hard work is common, intelligence is uncommon, courage is rare. Elon has all three. Mm-hmm. That is absolutely true, and you will see that throughout the rest of the book. And I feel like that, for me, separates what I think of the personality from the ideas really effectively right at the beginning. He also is just kind of like says the quiet part out loud. He's like, envy says more about the envious than the envied. People who are worth impressing will be impressed.
Yep. Yeah.
And then he asks this question, or it's not actually just a question. It's like a whole big lead up to this, but essentially all of the hate, for lack of a better term, that Elon gets, he's saying like, that's fine, you can dislike him, but he also is sort of championing these things that are like really, really big ideas, could really change the world, right? The electric vehicles, multiplanetary species. Like these are things that you can make fun of him because, oh, that's crazy. But he asked, like, when humanity did amazing things, when you look back, were you cheering or were you jeering? And I feel like that's at least worth keeping an open mind about.
Yeah.
I personally don't like Elon Musk.
Okay.
he killed my beloved Twitter.
Yeah.
Although now having read this book and seeing how he thinks about things, and he talks about like, I just do these things because I know they're the right thing to do and people are going to hate on him. I see some of the things that he describes in Tesla and SpaceX and the narrative that people put around that when he took over Twitter. I feel I've always felt that we weren't really getting the whole picture about just how bad a shape Twitter was in when he sort of accidentally bought it, because he's like, hey, I'm going to buy this. No, I don't really want to buy it. And they're like, oh, no, you put your bid in. Now it's yours. Yeah. And he's like, okay, crap. Now I got to do the same thing I did with my other companies with this and actually figure out what's going on here. And he is pretty extreme. But one of the things that I think pops up over and over again is that he's not asking anyone to do something that he's not willing to do. He's crashing on the factory floor because it's so important that people see the leader, on the front lines, that sort of thing. So I don't know. I think there's definitely some stuff we can learn from this. And I think Naval Ravikant just like sets it up perfectly.
Yeah. Yeah. I just, because you were willing to share, I would make choices very differently than Elon Musk makes choices. Now, granted, he is a billionaire, like a uber billionaire. Did he make trillionaire yet? I don't know if he did or not. But anyhow, he's like an uber billionaire.
I don't know.
And it's like, so his life and my life are very, very different. They've always been very, very different. But like that does not mean in any way, shape, or form that you can't look at what he's done with these companies and look at what he's done with industries and with advancing technology and go, wow, what could I learn from that? Right. So the other one is like, I'm a kindred spirit with him in terms of like the engineering brain. And
Yeah, I
like,
thought about that when he's describing engineering. I'm like, oh, this is Cory's world.
yeah, like because I get portions of that. Now he takes it to a level that I don't take it to. Like he takes it to an extreme level that I don't take it to. But like I kind of resonate with him on some of those type of things. So like understanding as you're thinking through this, like what can we pull from, what good insights can we pull from a person who has clearly impacted the world? Like let's put it that way,
Yep. Yep.
and separate that from the personal opinion of do you, I guess, do you like him or don't you? Like that's the kind of high level way to say it. So the book is
Yep.
4 parts. Okay, you're going to get Pursue Purpose, The Foundations of a Unique Life, Ultra Hardcore Work, Mindsets and Principles for Achieving the Barely Possible, Building Companies, Stories and Strategies from PayPal, Tesla, and SpaceX, On Behalf of Humanity, that's part 4, How You Can Be Part of Elevating the Future of Humanity. Okay, so it's going to break into these 4 parts. What's weird about this book and what makes it hard for us doing a podcast on this book is in each of these parts, we're now going to have like a second level header. So if part 1 is the first level header, we're going to have a second level header. But then we have a third level header, and there are like a ton of them. Like if you look at the table of contents for this book, like there's a ton of these third level headers. And so it's like it's hard to parse this book out. So the best way Mike and I are going to try to do this is basically we're going to look at this in parts. We're probably, I'm going to say definitely probably going to hit like the second level headers. We will not try to hit all of the third level headers because that would, I mean, this would be a 6-hour episode if we tried to hit all the third level headers. And I don't have stuff to say on every third level header. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to look at part, like the part, and then we're going to look at these these 3 second level headers in like the first section, and we're going to go from there. So let's get started on this. Pursue Purpose.
Oh, one other
Go ahead.
quick thing here regarding the book. The Almanac of Naval Ravikant is this way too. If you're interested in this at all, you actually don't have to buy it. You can download the PDF for free off the website.
Yep.
So I want to call that out before we get into the content.
Yep. Okay, so part 1, Pursue Purpose. Living a Purposeful Life is the first header that we're going to talk about. And basically, it's just an aggregation of things Elon has said about purposeful life. So this is where Eric has kind of packaged all these things together. I think it's funny how he like kind of just launches right into it. Like it's such a weird, I can say it's weird. It's such a strange book it's different than every other book that I've read. And I haven't read the Almanac of Naval Ravikant. So, but we get into this idea of, what is Musk's core personal competence? Well, he thinks it's technology. He's not trying to be a savior. That's not his goal. He just wants to do obvious things that could add value to the world. He is basically like obsessed with, trying to be successful. If you're not doing something important in life, like there's all these little like blips and blurbs. And then he talks about the fact that it's like, he hasn't had the most glamorous life in the world. Like he's had periods of his life where he's done different things that he probably would do differently. He says the phrase rage demon. You need to have some kind of rage demon in your skill that drives you. And I'm like, man, who describes this as a rage demon? And I think this is where the nature of the book is so interesting, because you speak so differently than you write. Like I think most people do anyhow, where when I'm writing something, I process it a lot longer. I can review it, I can edit it. When I'm speaking on a podcast or when I'm being interviewed by somebody or whatever it is, things will come out that like I probably wouldn't write that down the same way. And I wonder if like would Rage Demon, would he describe, Rage Demon in writing like he did there. So but like, and then last one I'll say, Mike, and then I'll turn it over to you for this first section. This is he describes, this is the foundation of my philosophy. This is Musk describing the foundation of his philosophy. I'm curious about the nature of the universe. And the reason why I want to call that one out is because that structures why he's interested in physics and engineering. That structures why he wants to start companies. And I can't wait until we get to talk about the companies, because you think about Tesla as a car company, but it's not. You think about SpaceX as a rocket company. It's not. Like he's got these bigger goals that he's trying to do. And this company is just a way to achieve that thing. And all of that comes down to this idea of he's curious about the universe and he's trying to understand the universe, and he's trying to understand how to do more and how to do more and how to do more. So I think that's like a really good way to set the stage of, if you don't understand this, you're kind of missing something about Elon.
Yeah, and then he also says if you need encouragement, don't start a company.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he recognizes that it's going to be lonely, it's going to be hard. He does share some things that I disagree with right at the beginning here. Like, he has this fanatical idea that you have to work every waking hour. It kind of makes sense if you understand that he views his way of living a purposeful life, making a contribution to humanity, as building these companies. The way I interpret that is he's so connected to his why that he sort of lets it go wild sometimes. Yep. Maybe not sometimes, maybe all the time. But there is some useful stuff in here. Like, he asked the question, how can I be useful today? I think that's really that's a really great question. He says to create more than you consume. I agree with that 100%. Don't agree with the needing to work every waking hour. But also like the encouragement that it's normal to feel fear. I think I shared this not too long ago in a pro show, but like I went to the growth intensive and kind of was dealing with the 4 horsemen of fear. I've got a blog post I'll put in the show notes for people who want to dig deeper in that. But fear is one of those things that can creep in, and then it sort of impacts everything that you do and you don't even realize it. Mm-hmm. So I think that's a really powerful way to start the book. And I really like the fact that the very first chapter we get into here is living a purposeful life. Yep. Elon Musk is not the person that comes to mind usually when you think about how do I live a life of purpose. But that's kind of what I like about this. Yeah. It's different advice. It's not necessarily better advice than like the Bill Burnett and Dave Evans book that we read not too long ago. Mm-hmm. Which I think was actually How to Live a Meaningful Life, if I remember right on the title.
That's what it was.
Like, I'm not going to recommend go learn from Elon instead, but what this does is it kind of provides a different perspective, and you do have to kind of pick through it and decide what you're actually going to apply from this. But it's so different, it's framed so differently that it actually is kind of fun to read. Yeah. And there's some nuggets in there if you look for them.
Yeah, and I'll say this now. I think this was a super easy read. Like, it was fast. Like, I don't know if it was because it was in like the smaller chunks or it was broken down the way it was, but like, this was not like a sifting through heavy material thing. It was like, oh, that's an interesting idea. Oh, I disagree with that. Oh, that's an interesting idea. So like, I was engaged. I think that's probably the best way I can describe it. Is I was engaged more than I've been with other books. All right, if we're ready to move on to the second kind of sub bullet here in part 1. Think like a physicist. Now, this gets to the idea of basically, essentially, where he's laying the groundwork of Musk's like philosophy, Musk's background, Musk's thinking. So in the first one, we were thinking about purpose and what was his purpose. This one, we're thinking about like essentially the way his brain works at a core, right? And it works thinking like a physicist. And the best way I got, or the best way I can describe this is this idea of first principles thinking. So he breaks everything down in the most fundamental units, starts by asking, what am I most confident is true at a foundational level? And I think about like, what is a scientist trying to do? What is a physicist trying to do? They're trying to understand nature. They're trying to understand the universe, right? Like, they're not necessarily trying to apply all that much. He'll say later in the book that like, scientists try to understand things, engineers try to create value, or engineers try to like advance it and move it forward. And like, it's truly the idea of he's trying to break everything down to the most elemental level that he can, and then he's trying to start there. And like, that's where his physicist idea comes in. And he gives an example here about like making a rocket, and how like we have these assumptions, but if you break it down and you break it down and you break it down, like it really changes the way you think about it. He then throws out the idea here of truth and trying to be less wrong within this topic. And basically it's, like, how do we learn? How do we figure out what actual true truth, I'm going to say, is, and like and how do we go to first principles to try to find those things? So it really kind of gives you an idea of like where he starts all of his thinking that he builds the rest of the foundation off of. So it's a shorter section, but I thought it was good to help him understand, or help us understand kind of Elon. The other thing, last comment about the way Mike and I are going to talk here, we're going to say he, And normally when we say he, we would mean the author of the book. But when we say he here, because it's all Musk's like quotes and stuff, we're really talking about what Musk says. We're not really talking about what Eric Jorgensen says or how he packaged it. So just make sure you think about that as you're listening to us talk about it.
Yep, 100%. Yeah. So a couple of details I'll call it from here. He mentions that he played a lot of Civilization in this chapter. Agreed. Respect.
I never played
Have you ever played Civilization?
No.
Come on, Cory.
I mean, maybe like once or twice, but I was like, this is not for me. Like this game is not for me.
Greatest video game franchise of all time.
Okay.
Easy.
Okay.
Sorry, Mario. Sorry, Zelda. It's Civilization.
Okay.
I remember getting Civilization 2 box software from like Comp USA back in the day.
Oh, I can picture it, but I only played it once or twice. Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You gotta put in a little bit of time to figure it out. Civilization 2, I remember going in there. I was a little kid. I was fascinated with technology. So I was just like, I'm going to buy a computer game. I don't even care what it is. I'm going to get a computer game. I walk in there and I'm like, oh, this one looks okay. You know, I walk out with it. Little did I know I was going to drop thousands of hours on that. And I've played every iteration of Civilization since then. It's a pretty cool game. I don't agree that it is a way to understand how civilizations rise and fall.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, I would agree with that.
But he also says to read a lot of books, which I agree, Elon. You should read a lot of books.
That's shocking. I can't believe it. Like I can't believe you agree with him on that point.
Yeah. And then a couple other things, which I think are just, I have a bunch of just like tiny little anecdotes, which jumped out to me. You know, no matter how smart you are, you will make mistakes. So I feel like that kind of gets back to the fear of failure thing. A lot of people, myself included, don't want to be wrong, so they won't do stuff. One thing you can say about Elon Musk is he doesn't care if he's going to be perceived as wrong. He also says that most people self-limit their ability to learn. I agree with that. There's no difference between, I think it was Mark Twain, he said, there's no difference between the person who can read but doesn't and the person who can't.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
And then talk to people from different walks of life. There's this idea in and of itself is probably worth an entire book because it's so easy to surround yourself with people in the echo chamber. I feel like if you were to dig into the lives of most of the people who they hear Elon Musk and they recoil, they would struggle with this particular point. You know, and it's not conservative, liberal, Republican, Democrat. It's on both sides, but the information culture that we live in just tends to kind of feed you stuff that is going to reinforce your beliefs, and then whenever somebody says something contrary, like, oh, they're crazy. And it's very easy because of Elon Musk's personality, and he doesn't care if he's wrong, and he's on this larger purpose, so he's just going to say whatever pops into his head that he thinks is going to advance the mission, regardless of what people think about it. Real easy to paint him with those broad strokes and say, oh, this guy is crazy.
This gets at why, so this talk to different people or people from different walks of life. This gets to why, like, I'm so obsessed with interview shows. Like, that's why Talking to the Internet was an interview show. That's why I asked you, like, in the pro show today about who you would interview. Like, I think it's fascinating to talk to other people and just see where the conversation goes. Like, I think it's really fascinating to do that. Now, is it the best always? No, but it's like, I think it's really fascinating. Okay, so let's go to his next fundamental philosophical and or way of thinking is the value of engineering. So I love I'm going to give you a third level.
Hold on. Can I start this one? Because you have an engineering background, so you can correct all of my wrong assumptions here. Okay. So the value of engineering, there were just a couple things I jotted down here, but one quote in particular, Arthur C. Clarke, I feel like this quote kind of opened up to me, made engineering much more interesting, I'll say. A sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. I was like, okay, so engineers are magicians now. That's kind of cool. He also talks about how there's never a shortage of ideas and that you only build value in a company if you do hard work to solve tough problems. I feel like this kind of just lays the foundation for, well, obviously the rest of the book, but you kind of see what makes him tick.
Yes.
After this chapter. He loves the big problems that people think are impossible and then figuring out how to make them work. And he doesn't care if he fails along the way because that's part of the process. He hopes he doesn't go bankrupt and runs out of money and that these companies actually work. But he's willing to throw everything into it because he's so fascinated by this process when it works and how it seems like magic to everybody else. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. And this is where I think Eric Jorgenson does a really, really good job in the way he structures the book and the way he assembles everything, is because like it gives a natural way of thinking about Elon. Like, okay, so he's going to do something that has purpose. He's going to break it down to first principles, and then he's going to figure out a way to create out of that, right? And in my mind, like those are the first three sections here. That Arthur C. Clarke quote about like it's indistinguishable from magic, I feel this every time I fly on a plane, Mike. Like I get on a plane and I go, something this heavy should not be able to do this. Like it doesn't make any sense why this is true and why this can happen. If you think about like a maglev train, I know I'm transportation heavy right now, like a maglev train, what are we going to do? We're going to float a really heavy train, and then we're going to like adjust the electricity within the track and make it go like hundreds of miles per hour. Like that's incredible. Like it's insane to me. So yes, like this is what drives me, like as the why do I care about engineering? What makes engineering interesting to me is you're really doing essentially magical things. And then it gets to the other part where I said about, I'll give you the full quote now, but science is discovering the essential truth about what exists in the universe. Engineering is about creating things that have never existed before. So you take this idea of like borderline magic, and then what do? You add value to the world, and like human flourishing like comes out of that. And I think, oh my gosh, like what a cool, like why would you not want to do stuff like that? Like that's just the way my brain works. So I'm very much a kindred spirit here when it comes to this. The last one I'll call out here is he talks about prototypes are easy and production is hard. Man, oh man, oh man, is that true? Like, granted, prototypes are not really quote unquote easy. Like getting something that actually works the way you designed it or want it to work in the real world is super hard. But compared to then actually producing that, and heaven forbid you would want to mass produce it, because mass producing, we have a thing in our world we call design for manufacturing. And it's like you actually change the design so it can be mass produced, right? Like it's not the ideal thing in the world. It's the ideal thing that can be made 100,000 every hour. You know what I mean? Like, and it's just a very different way to think about things. So I love the way Jorgenson sets up this first section. I think part one gives us this idea of the way Musk kind of operates, like his core operating system, which leads us into part two. Are you ready to go? Ready to go to part two?
Yep. Let's do it.
Okay, so part two is called Ultra Hardcore Work. And the five sections we're going to talk about here is what it takes, building exceptional teams, designing the organization, maniacal urgency, and we must make stuff. So this is where like you start to see, this is where I start to see like differences in the way like I would operate and the way Musk operates, but we'll get there as we go. So what it takes. He talks about the idea that he studied business because if he didn't study business, he was going to have to work for somebody else. And like the last thing he wanted to do is work for anybody else. So he's really, really like he'll drive home here. He's really passionate about the engineering side and the physics side. He does the business because he has to. And if he doesn't do that, he can't do the engineering side. I can't remember if it's here or if it's later. He talks about the fact that like to work on the problems he wanted to work on, he had to be the CEO. Or else he would have to work on somebody else's problems, and he'd have to work on stuff that other people wanted to work on. He talks about sleeping on the factory floor, and he talks about it here, and then he talks about it later. But he spends like 3 years living in a factory, and all I think about is like, oh my gosh, that's crazy. Like that is absolutely wild and crazy. Could not do it. He's got the leaders eat last principle. Leaders should always take care of the team before they take care of themselves. The supervisor is there to serve the team, not the other way around. And then the last one I'll call out before I turn it over to you, Mike, is this staring into the abyss, right? That basically there's two principles, staring into the abyss and then eating glass. And staring in the abyss is like the idea that more than likely you're going to fail. If you're doing a startup, you're going to fail, and you're staring into this abyss or this train coming at you that is failure, and it's coming, and here it comes. And then the other one's eating glass is basically you need to do the thing nobody else wants to do. You need to work on the thing that nobody else wants to work on, and it's going to be longer than you want to do it, and it's going to hurt more than you want it to hurt, and it's going to be terrible. And guess what? This is what you sign up for when you commit to the kind of work that Musk wants to do and that fits his things. And I just think it's a really, again, we're seeing this idea of the way he thinks about solving problems and the way he thinks about starting companies and doing work. So it's just an interesting first section.
Yeah, I like it a lot. One of the things he mentions at the beginning of this is most of the time I get way too much credit or attention for what I do. He says something in here that I think kind of, I'm not going to say justifies, but it explains why he doesn't care what people think about what he says. Because he was a nerd. He got beat up.
Yep. Yeah.
And he says that people who worry about the impact of words have never been punched in the face. Yeah. I'm like, well, you're right. I haven't been punched in the face. Let's keep it that way. But yeah. And then he asks this question, what's the worst that could happen? This is something that I think kind of gets into like the fear setting idea with Tim Ferriss, if you're familiar with that. But this is sort of the attitude he has with the companies that he's built. Like, yeah, I don't want to run out of money, but if I do run out of money and the company goes bankrupt, like, what's the worst that could happen? Yeah. Like, it's figure outable. Yeah. And so I feel like that's a kind of a throwaway comment, but is also a pretty powerful idea that we can definitely learn from. I asked this exact question to my wife when I was considering leaving the day job at the digital marketing agency. She didn't know we were launching into a fear setting exercise, but yeah. Like, what's the worst that could happen? She's like, yeah, that's the attitude. And I'm like, no, really, what is the worst that could happen? Because once you name it, it's not so scary.
Yeah. Okay. So the next section, he's going to talk about building exceptional teams. I don't have a ton on this one. He describes a company in a very funny way here. He calls it a group with a goal, which I think is a really funny way to just talk about a company. But then what stood out to me the most here is there are only a small number of excellent people. They're hard to find. Find those small number of excellent people and like work with those type of people. And when I think about this, I knew a guy who went and worked for SpaceX when I was in grad school. He was an aerospace engineering PhD student. He went to work for SpaceX, and he came back to finish his PhD. And basically, like he said, it was the craziest experience I've ever had. It was entirely too intense. Like, I did not want to keep doing it. Like, it was insane. He goes, but without a doubt, those were probably the smartest people I've ever been around in my entire life. Like, it was just this assembly of like the craziest, most excellent, smart people that he'd ever been around. And then I like that he calls out the idea of like, when hiring, look for the right attitude. Skills can be taught. And this comes, I think, from him because, he goes and starts SpaceX. He doesn't know anything about rockets. He just teaches himself about rockets. He's a computer software kind of guy, and he teaches himself about rockets. I like this idea of, hire for the attitude, hire for the non-technical stuff, and then we can teach the technical. Now, that breaks at some point. There are certain things that are just too big of a lift for certain people to learn. But I think if we went this route more than we went the other route, because I see that I think we hire so much for check the boxes on the job description, and we don't worry about the person enough. If we think more about the person and then how do we help them get those skills on the job description, I think we'd just be better off from a hiring standpoint. So those are mine. One of the things I haven't disagreed with a lot, this feedback over feelings thing. I think he goes a little too hard on the don't worry about other people's feelings, right? Like, just like tell them sure. The truth. I get that there's a reality to that. Like, people need to hear the truth, and we can't be so soft in this world. But I also think like we need to not just be a steamroller and just like absolutely run over everybody. And I kind of get the vibe that he might be a little bit like that in a meeting, to where it's like, listen, I'm gonna give it to you, and I'm not gonna worry about how you feel when we leave the room.
Yeah, radical candor. Kim Scott, he's an obnoxious jerk for sure. Yeah, there's actually a lot in this chapter that I liked. It mentions a company, just a bunch of people coming together to create a product or service. That is true if you get them aligned with the mission. A small group of technically strong people will always beat a large group of moderately strong people. 100%.
Yep.
You got to hire A players.
Yeah.
Be willing to recruit hard for excellent people. You can judge a person's character by their friends and associates. That's interesting, but I think it's 100% true. And wanting to be liked is a weakness. Yeah, I agree. He can take that a little bit too far, but I agree with the principle, and I struggle with that myself.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay, you ready to move to designing the organization?
yeah, we should pick up the pace on these. There's a lot of chapters to get through here.
Yeah, okay. So in designing the organization, he's basically just describing kind of the way he would, the way he would create an org. Communication to travel the shortest path. He gets rid of this idea of hierarchy, which he's shown through going onto the factory floor. And then simplicity is a winner. The best part is no part. The best process is no process, which I think is a very funny way to think about that. And we teach this in our thing is how do we do it with less parts? How do we do it with less operations? I like his algorithm. This is the last one I'll say in this section, but he's got an algorithm. He calls it the algorithm, and it's make your requirements less dumb. Try very hard to delete every part of the process, simplify or optimize, accelerate, and then automate. And he says where you mess up in a company is when you don't do these in that order, when you don't look at those in that 5-step order. So
yeah, had you heard of this before?
The algorithm? No.
Yeah. I guess that's fairly famous. That's something that he's been championing for a long time.
Yeah.
I like those steps as well. Kind of interesting to hear him talk about it in a very short section of this book. Mm-hmm. And this is where I feel like if Elon were writing this, what are the big things that the big ideas that he's contributed to the world? He would probably expand this a little bit, because I have heard people talk about Elon's algorithm for years.
Interesting.
And yeah, I feel like you could definitely dive deeper into that, but I do like that. I do like that a lot. It talks about a major source of issues being poor communication. 100%. Yep. The way to solve that is to allow free flow of information between all levels. I agree with that. And then also, when I was reading that, was thinking about that applies to PKM too. That's the whole idea behind everything I do with Obsidian is what's the shortest path for the information to flow, eliminate all the friction, add it back where you don't want it to go so you can channel it into the right places. And yeah, the best part is no part. The best process is no process. I tend to want to make processes for everything. Problem with making processes for everything is that they have to be updated all the time.
Yep.
So that has kind of challenged me. How can I figure out a way where I don't have to create as many processes? I can just focus on the stuff that really is critical to the business. And then he makes a comment about ruthlessly cutting things. He says if you're not adding previously deleted things back in 10% of the time, you're not deleting enough. Mm-hmm. I almost never do that. I usually just expand the scope of the things that I end up working on. So that kind of challenged me. I don't have an action item from that, but a very different perspective, and I think probably a healthy one for me to think about.
I like that idea too, that get rid of more and then add stuff back in. I try to teach my engineers, last one is a common mistake engineers make is to optimize a thing that should not exist.
I wrote that down too.
And I try to teach them that all the time. When we're doing design projects, I'm like, hold on. Don't make it better until you're sure it's right. Don't make it better until you're sure it's right. Okay, so moving into maniacal urgency. This one is very hit the button kind of a thing for me. I love the don't waste time section. Basically, he talks about walking out of a meeting or dropping off a call as soon as it's not adding value. It's not rude to leave. It's rude to make someone stay and waste their time. And I'm like, oh my goodness, you are speaking my language, Elon Musk. Absolutely.
I like the law of gaseous expansion for schedules.
Yeah.
There's another term for this. I forget what it's called. Is it Parkinson's law, where the size of the task, the length of the task will expand to fill the time that you have to do it?
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
But the law of gaseous expansion for schedules is whatever time you set, it's not going to be less than that.
Which gets why if you think about his principles, he'll set these incredibly aggressive timelines, and then he won't meet them. But he's not doing it.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, he's just trying to be faster than he thinks he can be. And he's trying to do it. The other one, the principle in here is do things in parallel. I don't think I do this nearly enough. Like, I'm not good enough about saying, okay, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to take 2 weeks for somebody else to get back to me, or a week for somebody else to get back to me. What am I doing in the meantime? And instead I'm going, what should I be doing on that project? Right. Like, whereas if I'm smarter about this, I'm parallelizing those tasks. That's a very computer sciencey thing that I think he gets from his software world for sure.
Yeah, so when he's talking about like I'm gonna set these aggressive timelines, I'm not gonna make them. This is where I realize that he and I are very different people. And it's very easy at this point to be like, dude, you are crazy. Why are you doing all this stuff that you know is wrong? But also, I feel like this is something that I could probably benefit from. I remember being at Crafts and Commerce and somebody telling me like, you have green light after green light after green light. You just got to do stuff, and I tend to just overthink things. Got to figure it all out before I do something. And I could learn from Elon, just go do this stuff. I don't like personally how aggressive he is about it, but I think it is useful in a sense, because it forces him and his teams to move faster. I cannot picture myself even surviving, let alone thriving on that sort of team. But I get it.
Yeah,
like
me too.
There probably are people who like that sort of environment, and more power to you, I guess. Go terraform Mars. But it's like, I'm calling it out because it's not just, well, I wouldn't like that. It's disgusting to me. Yeah. That's the exact place I never want to work. I never want to set foot in that type of environment. And I think for a lot of people, it's completely wrong. But I also like see the other side now, me too. I don't know, he's got limited time on this earth. He wants to leave this big contribution to humanity. Let's get to Mars. No one's going to do it. I got to do it. Like, I kind of get it.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's a little uncomfortable.
There's a dissonance there for me too, because it's like, I see that if I want to do big, hairy, audacious goal type things, I have to be more maniacal than I am. But at the same time, the idea of being maniacal just really rubs me the wrong way. Like, I don't like it at all. Right. So I'm in the same boat you are. Yeah, I'm in the same boat you are. Okay, so let's move to we must make stuff. So this is where like the Musk thing gets me. Now let me break it to the fools out there, right? Like, so he says like that's the way he approaches this thing, but basically saying if we don't make things don't get made. And it's like, yes, that is 100% true. Like, if we don't farm food, if we don't produce steel, if we don't do these things, they're not going to get done. I completely agree with the principle, right? It's just, I like the way he says it just kind of gets me. The idea of sometimes the product isn't the hard part. It's making the product. It's figuring out how to do it at scale. It's figuring out how to increase your capabilities. And then this idea of attacking the constraint, the idea of what is the thing that's slowing you down the most, and how do we very, very much address that? Because we can have 999 pieces going well, but if that one piece is holding us back, or if that one supplier is holding us back, that's the constraint, and how do we address that? So this one I don't have a lot of stuff on, other than like he's thinking about production, he's thinking about taking something and ramping it up, and the fact that he thinks we need to, as a society, make and create more, which is going to roll right into part 3 here in a second. But that's my takeaway from here.
Yeah, he mentions that somebody has to do the real work. That, I think, encapsulates how he thinks about this. Yep. Design is overrated, manufacturing is underrated. And again, I get his perspective there. As a chronic overthinker, I probably fall into that more often than I should. The thing that really matters is the machine that builds the machines. Yep. That was interesting to me, because he's talking about the bottleneck for Tesla, for example, is the machine that makes the cars. Yep. And so that's the thing that they should be trying to optimize for. And that's a oversimplifying of the problem. But really it's not how do we tweak the individual things in the assembly line to move a little bit faster. Like the core materials that need to be generated for this thing. That's where the real bottleneck is. I think that's an interesting thing for me to identify in my own business. Probably the bottleneck for me is myself, with a lot of the content stuff that I create.
Well, and I don't think it's in like you're doing anything wrong. It's a matter of you only have a limited number of hours in the day. And
Right.
you know, and I think there's a truth to that, not a detriment to you necessarily. It's just the reality of life, right? So he would say that's a first
Right.
principles thing, right?
Yep.
I think about this with Kickstarter. You know, like this whole idea of people can create that one-off prototype and they can put it on a Kickstarter and it can look really, really good. And really what you're trying to figure
True.
out is, can they make it? Like, can you actually
Yep.
make the thing? Because I remember there was a coffee machine that everybody was like, oh my gosh, this is like the coolest thing ever. And it's going to make amazing coffee. It's going to do all this stuff. And there was no way. I had a buddy that was looking at the design. He's like, there's no way they're going to produce this. He's like, you can't make that. Like, you can't manufacture that. It's going to cost $1 million. And I was like, okay. And sure enough, it died in like a year or whatever. Like they were like, yeah, we can't produce it. Sorry, guys. Like the Kickstarter's dead.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, okay. Let's move to part 3. This is building companies. So now we get into more, I would say this is more biographical. This is more him explaining how he became a founder. This is more him explaining how Tesla emerged, how SpaceX emerged. Those are the 3 like kind of sub chapters we're going to talk about here. Becoming a founder, I had no idea Zip2 even existed. So Zip2 was a thing that came before.
I was familiar with this.
Yeah, see, I this was new to me. But then it turned into PayPal, and then from PayPal, he rolled into this next thing. The thing that I thought was funny in this one part is he talks about like, you know, we're developing this thing, we're designing this thing, and then I forget the company that bought it. Was it Compact? Whatever company bought
Compact, the computers. Yeah. They paid $300 million for it.
And he's like, a check showed up one day in the mail. He's like, and next thing you know, I had $21.5 million. And I was like, oh, shoot.
So this story, he the way he phrases this is I liked a lot. He's like, before I cashed the check, I had $5,000 in my bank account. After I cashed the check, I had $20 million and $5,000 in my bank account.
Yeah. I just think it's hilarious.
Just kind of highlighting how ridiculous that is that they sent a $20 million check in the mail.
Yep. But you think about this, and everybody thinks about, you know, Elon Musk the billionaire. He describes in here at some point where it's all funny money. Like, he doesn't have billions of dollars sitting in a bank account right now. It's all in stock. It's not cash. Yeah. Like he's not, you know, Scrooge McDuck swimming in his pool of money. And then like he is ruthless at putting money back into companies, right? And basically risking it all to do the next thing and risking it all to do the next thing. So anyhow, I'm getting too far ahead of myself, but like,
because that's how he accomplishes his purpose.
Yeah. It's so interesting to see how he lives out this idea of his purpose. So he talks about, you know, better to pick a path and keep moving forward than just vacillate endlessly on this decision, right? Chronic overthinkers. I feel
like he's watching me.
Right? So as a chronic overthinker, right? Like, okay, hey, let's just pick it and let's go. We might be wrong, but that's okay. We need to move fast. He talks earlier in the book about IP and how he believes the best IP, like intellectual property practice, is just being faster than everybody else. Right, like that's how you succeed most of the time. He talks in here about like, and this gets you to like coming to this discrepancy between his work life and his personal life, and his pursuit of passion and pursuit of purpose, I should say, and like how it impacts his work, his professional life. I left for a trip, a combination of needing to raise money, and I'd gotten married earlier in the year, had not had vacation or honeymoon. It was kind of a combined financing trip and honeymoon. Also, not a great idea, right? And I'm just like, you know, he's like looking back on this going, well, that was a choice. Probably shouldn't have made that one. Like that was kind of a bad idea.
Well, the context for that is that when he came back, he got muscled out of PayPal, which was the company that he was running at the time. But he also says that he refused to be bitter about it. Life is too short for long-term grudges, which I think is a really profound statement there. And he backs it up because later on he says that he invested in somebody else's business who was one of those co-founders. They invested in SpaceX right before it was going to go under. So you can look back and you can connect the dots and say like, oh, it's a good thing I didn't burn those bridges. But I feel like most people would just be so outraged that this thing that they'd worked so hard for, they finally took a break. They come back and the company's ripped out from underneath them. Like, there are a lot of people who would go nuclear at that point.
Well, and I think he just has such a different way of thinking about it. He's like, oh, I have this purpose, right? And like, okay, that stinks, but like I have this purpose and I'm going after my purpose more.
He also says that negative feedback is incredibly valuable, which I agree with, but also the way he describes that, you kind of understand why whenever he does a demo, whenever the SpaceX rockets blew up, he was just like, oh, okay, no big deal. On to the next part of the process.
Yeah.
It's easy to say that, but he actually believed it.
Yes. He actually lives it. Yep. I wonder what his like stress level though is. If you like measured his stress level, like I would just love to see it like on a chart.
Got to be through the
over
roof
the years, you know.
which is why he probably does a lot of the volatile things that he does and says a lot of the crazy things that he says because he's super stressed all the time.
Okay, we'll roll to now building Tesla. So anyhow, Zip2 rolls into PayPal. PayPal, he gets another big payout. You know, they get acquired by eBay. And he gets another big payout. He says in the one part, he's like, I could go buy one of the islands in the Bahamas, but what's the fun in that? We're going to put it back into another company. And then this is where Tesla comes in. And what's interesting here is the first kind of like subheading underneath the building Tesla one is the mission to protect the planet. And like we think about Tesla, or at least I think about Tesla as a car company. And I don't think he ever thought about it as a car company. He thought about it as an electricity company or as a reduce the amount of hydrocarbons we're using company. And how do we do that? He says
the purpose of Tesla is accelerating the use of sustainable energy.
Right, which is so like interesting to think how he really thinks about it versus how the rest of the world sees it, right? So in here, like we've got a lot of different ideas, but he's going to talk about dumping all of his money into this new company because he has this principle where new companies drive innovation. Like existing companies are just going to keep doing the thing that they're doing, and they're not going to want to reinvent the wheel. Tesla allowed a new company to come in and kind of disrupt the automotive space or disrupt the space, I guess the energy space. Building the first prototype. You know, he talks about this idea, and I think this is where he does it, but he talks about this idea of like how he didn't really want to make a sports car, but like he needed something to fund the making of the normal car, right? And the sports car.
Yeah, it started with the Roadster because they could charge a lot of money for it, and it would fund the less expensive other versions that he really wanted to build.
Yep. He then talks about, and he doubles down here. We talked about it before, but he's like, I'm a physics guy, an engineer. I'd prefer to be working on the products, but I got to do this business stuff, or else none of the other stuff works. I'm trying to think of what else. And here's where he talks about living in the Fremont and Nevada factories for 3 years. And he describes it to make my work for 3 years of hell. From 2017, I experienced the longest period of excruciating pain in my life. And it's like, my goodness. Like you think about it, it's not glamorous at all. Like this is not glamorous at all. This guy is just grinding and grinding and grinding with his own money. Like he took his own money and he's grinding. It's just wild to me.
Wild to me too. I like some of the stories that he tells in here. So, for example, at one point he gave a test drive to Larry Page and Sergey Brin. And there was a bug in the software, and the car would only go 10 miles an hour.
Yeah, exactly. And they still invested.
Like, no, I promise you guys, it goes way faster than this.
Yeah. They still invested, right?
Yep. He mentions the most important part is to start somewhere and be prepared to question your assumptions. He says, I have a habit of biting off more than I can chew and sitting there with chipmunk cheeks. Guilty. I feel you, Elon. Generally takes 3 major revisions for a technology to work really well. When he said that, I was initially like, that can't be true. There's got to be exceptions to that. And then as I was thinking through, I'm like, actually, I think he's probably right. Yeah. And he also shared that only 2 American car companies have not gone bankrupt, Ford and Tesla, which is kind of amazing to think about, but it's true. Yeah. I never really thought about Tesla as the vehicle for championing the sustainable energy, but it makes sense once he points it out. Because I remember coming across like Tesla as a brand selling like solar roofing panels. That was probably Solar City influence, but like I actually was on the Tesla page at one point looking at those solar roof panels and like, maybe I should put these in.
Yeah.
It's kind of, on the one hand, you're like, why in the world would you pick a car as the first project for this sort of thing? And you can see in this section like where that started, because he says he first realized all vehicles would eventually be electric in the early 90s. So this just is kind of like him in a nutshell. He realizes this is where it's going. Okay, let's accelerate it.
Yeah.
Let's dump gas on this fire and get there as fast as we possibly can.
Yeah, and if you look through here, and we're gonna not remember all the details. I don't even know if the book provides all the details of it, but you can kind of see like 3 different arms moving at the same time, or like you got Solar City that's trying to figure out how to gather solar from the sun. You've got Tesla that's building like the roof and like the power wall, right, to store this energy. Then you've got the car company, and all these things are kind of happening at the same time, but it's all around this idea of sustainable and energy, and move into a different source of energy. So are you ready to move on to SpaceX? Can we build
Yes.
SpaceX now?
Yeah, so SpaceX is basically let's get to Mars.
Like, and
because he feels like that's so important.
And the funny thing about it, right, like he looks at this and he goes, sustainable energy. Okay, like what would be like a first principles way to look at this? Well, cars, right? Like that's a way, like a lot of people drive cars, and if we can make cars more renewable, then that's a way to get to sustainability and renewables. And he does the same thing with SpaceX. He's like, what's the problem with space travel? We haven't been there in 50 years. We haven't been to the moon in 50 years or whatever. He's like, reusable rockets. So that's the way we're going to address this. If we can make the rockets more reusable, we significantly reduce the cost to travel to space. Boom! Like that's what we're gonna tackle.
And it's not just the reusable rockets. It's $30 million to build a rocket. There's got to be a way to do it cheaper than that. And they got it down to $5 million. And then they're like, oh, if we make it reusable, then we can double that. So, or double the value of that. It costs half as much essentially if you can reuse it. And I remember when SpaceX first launched their rocket and it blew up and everyone was making fun of it. And he mentions in here like that was completely expected. He thought SpaceX was going to fail. Why would you dump so much money into a thing expecting it to fail unless you really believe in the mission?
Is SpaceX what he talked about it like the 10%? He's like, there was a 10% chance we were going to succeed. Like that's all that was.
I think so.
Yeah, okay.
I think so. And the 3 major revisions for technology work really well. Like that was going into it. He's like maybe 3, maybe more for the rockets, because that's such a complex problem. So he shares in here that at some point he has just a little bit of money left over and he's trying to decide which one he's going to give it to. And he's like, okay, guys, we can do a 4th launch, but this one really has got to work and we got to do it really fast because there's like not much money to work with. And that's the one that actually worked. And it's kind of crazy to think about where things were at prior to all those failed launches, because he wants to not just like send something up into space, have it fall down in the ocean like we've been doing it. He wants to make it easy to send it up to space, have it come back, land at the exact same spot, refill it real quickly, and then send it again. Because the whole goal is to get like this transit system that is consistently sending people to and from Mars.
Yep.
That's such a big vision. That's such a crazy idea, especially when the rocket couldn't even, get off the launch pad because it was blowing up. But you got to admire that's just part of the process. Just keep going forward. He even mentions at some point, I didn't jot down the details, but everybody's disappointed. The first launch was a failure. He's like, no, guys, that was expected. Don't worry about it. We'll do better on the next one. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Seeing him, this is where, and I'll talk about it later when I talk about action items, but this is where I get like an action item from, is this idea of how do I apply some of these principles into my world? Like, am I going to go out and start the next SpaceX? No, I don't have that vision. I don't want to do that. Like, that's not in me. Like, I'm not, I'm okay with that. Like, I'm comfortable with saying that. But like, what is the version of this that's in my life? And what's the version of this that like I'm passionate enough about, or I care enough about to have that purpose in my life in that area? And I don't know the answer. I want to explore that. Like, I want to think about that. One of the things that comes out of this chapter is asymmetry. This idea of, I forget what there's another word there, but if you make a change and something goes wrong, you get a big punishment. If you make a change and something goes right, you get a small reward. And it's like, man, is that so true? Like, I've seen that in so many different areas. It's like, you really messed that up, blah, blah, blah. And like, you feel terrible about it. Or you get it right. Nice job. And you get like this tiny little pat on the back. And it's like, gosh, what is it? There's also, we have this, at least I have this impression that there's like this narcissism, there's this like, there's this aura of Elon Musk. But I've noticed in a couple of different comments throughout this book and a couple of different ways he says things, there's also like a humility and like a humbleness that you don't always see, or at least it doesn't
Yeah,
get
you don't
talked
get
about.
that online.
Because he says there could be other solutions too, but this will work. The first order of business was to get one that works, right? Like he acknowledges, like, I don't know everything, but I can tell you that there's no reason why this won't work, and we're going to give it a shot, and we're going to go after it. Might be wrong, we might fail, things might blow up. That's okay. Like we'll move forward. I don't know. I'm actually leaving this book thinking more highly of Elon Musk than I went into this book thinking of him. And it's just the
point. I think, it's not to make everybody a fan of Elon Musk, but it is to recognize the value of some of his good ideas.
Yeah. Okay. Let's move on to part 4.
All right.
So part 4 is called On Behalf of Humanity. And Mike, I'm going to freely admit, I'm going to tell you this up front. This is where the book kind of went like, all right, like we're getting to it now. Like this is a little bit too much for me. I'm intrigued to see what's going to happen here, because this is more the pie in the sky, like, shoot for the moon kind of stuff. Like I don't know how else to say it, but like the sections here are called Building Our Future, The Age of Abundance, Our Existential Risk, and then Becoming Multiplanetary. And it's these really, really lofty ideas, these really, really like get out there. So he considers companies philanthropy, like they're a way of giving back to humanity. This idea of like companies raise the entire economy, and like they're helping everybody get better. So it's a very different way of thinking about kind of how we drive society forward. And he gets into civilization. I don't remember which section of this he gets into civilization, but like this first section, he
Probably
starts out
all of it.
Yeah, he starts out with companies and how companies are the way to build the future. And he's kind of motivating people, or at least Eric Jorgenson's motivating people to go start companies and to go create the thing you want to see in the world, essentially, is the way I took it. They didn't say that, but that's the way I took this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So Building Our Future, it talks about how profit is a good thing. I've heard it said on a smaller scale that profit is permission to show up and do the thing again tomorrow.
Yep.
And he says, I can't emphasize this enough. As long as we push hard and are not complacent, the future is going to be great. So he's very optimistic. In fact, I think in the last section, he talks about how we should be optimistic because being pessimistic does absolutely no good, which is a very pragmatic way of looking at that. And I actually appreciated that. So Building Our Future is kind of like build companies. The Age of Abundance is really where he gets into, let's see, this is actually the AI stuff is our existential risks. The Age of Abundance is more the automation in general.
Yep.
Talks a little bit about AI in terms of like augmenting our intelligence, things like that. Existential risks is where he brings in the civilization stuff, and there's a life cycle. Everything, rises and falls. And then the Becoming Multiplanetary is really his case for why we need to terraform Mars. There's so much crazy stuff in here. I think we got to talk about it together, because I think it sort of like builds together, or ties together.
I agree.
Let's start with the end, the multiplanetary thing. Essentially, he believes that any species that does not become multiplanetary is simply waiting around until their extinction event. This is the one I maybe disagree with. It's not worth really arguing about. Maybe he's right. Who cares?
Yep.
That's sort of how I feel about it.
I agree.
We have fundamental differences of opinion on how long Earth has been around and how life got here. I'll just say that.
And he is also thinking on the billions of years time scale. So like you have to think on that time scale, or else this doesn't make any sense. If you think of like a generation or 2 or 4 or whatever, like you don't really grasp what he's thinking. He's thinking the billions of years time scale. Like if you extrapolate that out, there's a chance a meteor is going to hit the Earth and everybody's going to die. And it's like, okay, like if that's your starting point is the billions of years time scale, yeah, that makes sense. Like that seems plausible that there's a non-zero probability that would happen.
Yep. And the AI stuff I actually thought was pretty interesting. I don't know that he's necessarily right about that, but he has another company, Neuralink, which is trying to use technology and artificial intelligence to do some pretty, you can almost describe it as noble things, like people who can't see, rewiring their brains so that they can actually see. I grew up, well, not grew up, my beginning work life, I worked full time for the family business, and it's special education. And so I would go to the conferences and I would see the assistive technology that people were using to give people the ability to live independently. And I always, that was something I always really appreciated about that work that I did. I think that's really cool. I think I'm maybe a little bit uncomfortable with the whole idea of like we're rewiring genetics in order to do it. But I think he probably is right in terms of his approach to AI is going to be generally useful. He does talk about we're moving towards artificial general intelligence. The machines are going to be smarter than us, but sort of like it'll be okay because they'll like us. There's a 10% chance that they'll turn on us. Like, I don't know what to do with that sort of conversation. Like, who cares? He's
very much a techno optimist, like very much a techno optimist when it comes to AI. He does talk about like basically he gets political is probably the wrong word, but you get some of his like ideas about regulation, his ideas about like where he stands on, is this a good time to be alive? The population change and what he thinks about population and why he's got 12 kids. And like, I mean, like it's like you get into some of this more nuanced stuff about Elon Musk, but like what I wonder is where does Eric Jorgenson's editorialization of all this, does it play into this at all? Like, I don't know. Like,
sure.
Yeah.
So like the way that his editorialization, I think, plays into it is, okay. So maybe it's the lack of editorialization, which is the editorialization.
Okay.
Like the fact that Elon has 12 kids with 3 different moms. I view that as you have failed as a father, dude. So we have different priorities. He's trying to keep the human race going, get us to Mars. Earth can support so many more people than we have right now. I don't know. He's got lots of crazy ideas. Maybe they're right, maybe they're not. I don't really know. But also, like, that's not what I'm optimizing for. Yeah. I want to show up for the 5 kids that I have with one wife who hopefully, like, that's the way it's going to be from beginning to the end. And I feel like just not making a judgment call on that is sort of making a judgment call on it. Like, hey, this is okay, and I don't know. I think like that's necessary for a book like this. You can't provide context, but there are some things in here where the ideas are so, I'm not going to say crazy because like essentially every idea could be considered crazy, but countercultural maybe. Like some of these things, if I'm writing this book, I feel like I got to have a little bit of an explainer for why he said this. And the fact that Eric Jorgenson doesn't do that, I feel like is a little bit of a choice.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. Like I think the one that gets me is like you want to aggregate all this stuff, but at the same time, like the book isn't about you and it's not about your thoughts and your perspectives on this. So it's like you don't want to come too hard on that realm. So in order to not come too hard on that realm, you kind of don't do anything with it, or you just make the disclaimer that you make at the very beginning of the book that we talked about earlier. But what I like about it is I think you do get to see why and where this thinking comes from. And I think Jorgenson did a good job helping me see like, oh, that makes sense why Musk thinks that. That makes sense why Musk would do that. Do I disagree with it? Sure, I'm allowed to. Do I agree with that? Sure, I'm allowed to. Like, I just think it's a really interesting thing, like the population collapse thing, and where he talks about the fact that like if we look at civilization when birth rates decline, the civilization declines. Like, I can't argue with that. Like, that's a really interesting take on that like once people stopped having kids, civilization stopped on that. Does that mean I think we should all go out and have as many children as possible with as many different people as possible? No, I don't. But that's a personal philosophy thing. Like,
and so the thing I think that makes it editorialized is like there are parts where there's a Q&A that happens in the book.
Yeah.
That's got to be Eric asking questions to Elon, getting additional context. And just the fact that he chose to ask certain questions and doesn't choose to ask other questions. There's Q&As for some things, but not on other things. That is the editorialization, I think. You're picking the parts that you feel need more context.
Yeah, and I would say like to round out part 4. Part 4, I would say, is like, what does Musk think are the important things that we should keep thinking about and keep working on into the future? And I think it's a really interesting thought experiment to wrestle with those in my head and go like, do I agree with this? Do I agree with this? Do I agree with this? Like, for example, I think AI is coming. Like, I don't know what form it's going to take, but I think he's absolutely right. It's coming. It's going to get more advanced. I don't think we're putting the cat back in the bag on that one.
Right.
Do I think we need to be multiplanetary? Not really. Like, I just don't. Like, I mean, I get his point that in the billion-year time scale, there's a chance that there's an extinction event that happens. But do we need to, like, populate another planet to save it? No, like, I'm not as passionate about that one. So that's my take on it.
If we can, cool. But yeah, I'm not as passionate about that one. Is a great way to summarize it.
Okay, so there's one last section in this book that's not one of the formal parts, but it's called bonus. So Jorgenson calls it bonus. It's basically a distillation of what he calls the 69 core Musk methods, and it's the things we learned about throughout the rest of the book, kind of just as one-liners. Like, they're very quick one-liners. I'm not super interested in going through those, Mike, unless you are. Like, no. I highlighted some of those, but I'm not super interested in going through those. He gives
basically for people who didn't read the book.
Yeah, it's a summary, right? Yeah. So then he gives a timeline of Musk's just life and starting companies and doing all those things. It's very just timeline. Like, it's a couple page timeline.
That's interesting. Yep.
And then I think the most interesting part of the bonus material is Elon Musk's recommended reading. So he gives the books that he's recommended reading, and I'm not going to go through the books, although he does have Viktor Frankl's book on there. But I'm not going to go through all the books that I thought were interesting and weren't, except for at the very end, he puts his mom's book in there, and he just wrote, "My mom wrote this," which I thought was awesome.
I mean, go ahead. Yep. It's your book.
Yeah.
I was actually a little bit annoyed by that reading list because I was interested in the books. But a lot of this is like the book, the author, and then a bullet or like a sentence usually about why he recommends it. And a lot of those were exactly the same. This is a really good book. This is a really good book. This is a really good book. Yeah. And a lot of them didn't even have additional context. It's like, dude, come on, give me a reason.
Yep, I agree. Okay, so that concludes it. Oh, and then the last thing is all the references, which there are over 1,000 citations and references for where all this stuff came from. So, like, you could spend weeks digging into all of these things and putting them back into context and doing all that stuff. But like Mike said, if you ever listen to a Musk interview, they're all over the place. So, like, were they ever really in context to begin with? I don't know. Right? Like,
that's a great question.
So it's like, while Jorgenson took them out of context, were they ever really in context? I don't know. Who knows?
That's fair.
Okay.
That's fair.
So let's roll to action items. It's my book. I'll start with my first action item. Basically, the only one I'm going to commit to and the only one I want to think about is I want to think about how do we take some of these principles that Musk has used in very dramatic scenarios, starting these major companies, pouring in millions of dollars into something, living on the shop floor, all that stuff. And how do I think about them in, like, what is the value for my more limited, and I don't mean that in a negative way, my more limited, my more constrained, personally, like, intentionally constrained life? Like, what does that look like, and how do I apply some of these principles? And I think it's going to be, all I'm going to commit to is maybe like a 30-minute thought session that says, like, what do I take from this book and how do I apply it to my life? And it's just going to be an Obsidian note that comes out of this book. That's all I'm going to commit to.
I got nothing. It was an interesting read. I don't know that there's anything specific I want to take away from any of Elon Musk's ideas. I do want to kind of chew on some of this stuff, but we'll see what comes out, basically.
Okay. That's good. Good. All right. So let's go to style and rating. Mike, this one is a weird book for me because the style is so different, but I didn't hate it. Like, I really kind of liked it. Like, I thought it was interesting. I thought the way Jorgenson like weaved things together, it all made sense. There wasn't a part where I read a thing and went, well, that came out of left field. Like, I have no idea why that's in that section. Like, this doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Looking back, as we've talked about this, I think it flows well from like Musk's core ideas to how he rolled into this thing, and now kind of his future. I mean, he's writing a book about a guy and about this guy's thoughts and ideas and like the way he's doing things. And he did what he said on the tin, right? Like, this is exactly like, I don't think about the book after the fact and go, well, shoot, like he sold me to a raw bill of goods. This wasn't what I was expecting. It's what I was expecting, of the book. I'm a little bit nervous because it's like, I just don't know how much editorializing Jorgenson actually did. Like, I would love to know if Musk read this book, if he said, oh yeah, he represented me well. Like, all of that makes sense. Like, and he did a good job. Like, I would love to hear Musk's take on Jorgenson's book. Right. And if he gave me like a yeah, like that actually did what I did. I mean, this is an easy 5-star book to me. Like, I just think it's interesting. Like, I think there's stuff to glean out of here. I think he's interesting. I don't think I agree with everything, and I definitely don't agree with all of Musk's philosophies and worldviews and ideologies, like, by no means, but that wasn't what I was trying to do with the book, and that's not how I'm going to rate the book. Like, the book isn't me rating my agreement with Elon Musk. The rating is me rating Jorgenson telling me about Elon Musk and communicating ideas to me and structuring it in a way that makes sense. It's a quick read. I think if people were remotely interested in Elon Musk, it's worth it. Like, I don't think you're wasting your time to do it. I actually think even if people don't like Elon Musk, it's worth it just to edify yourself and go, yep, these are all the reasons why I don't like him. And here he did is he proved it to me yet again of why I don't like him, or to just hear some of his thoughts and ideas. So while this might be somewhat controversial, I have no idea. This is a 5-star book to me. Like, I'm rating this a 5-star book. I thought it was good. I enjoyed reading it, and I think I got a lot out of it. So it's a 5-star book. How about you?
I can see the argument for the 5-star book. And I agree that even if you don't like Elon Musk, you should probably read it. Maybe especially if you don't like Elon Musk, you should read it. I remember Jim Rohn making a comment at one point about building your personal library, and he just makes these comments. He's like, you need a book from there on insert the most magnanimous person you want to be like. Gandhi, I think, is the example he used, right? And then you also need a book on Hitler. You got to have this is what to do, this is what not to do.
Yep.
I think there's value in getting all the different perspectives. And yeah, I don't think I like Elon at all as a person. But I also respect some of the choices from a business perspective. That's what this book did, I think, is it kind of helped you understand the core motivations. And I know there are people listening to this who are going to be like, this just painted him in a positive light. That's not who he is. He's a complete jerk. You can't trust anything that he says. I always think that there's more nuance than that sort of. So that there's always, you got to understand the whole picture and really like, what value does that add? That's that perspective. Like, oh, well, I'm not going to listen to that person. Okay, we're not going to have a dialogue. Like, how do things ever get better if we can't, have the conversation? So I think there's a large number of people who are just not going to read this, and that's fine. But I do think that if you go into it with an open mind, you will like this book. That's the key, though. You do have to go into it with an open mind. You have to disassociate what you think about what you think you know already about Elon Musk, because he gives you all sorts of anecdotes that you can use, all sorts of dots that you can connect to create a picture, which may or may not be true. But we tend to believe that stuff as this is true. Mm-hmm. This is my experience. Everything else that contradicts that must be wrong. And so those people are going to hate this book. Yep. I also think if you are an Elon Musk fan, this book might actually shift your perspective a little bit the other way. Maybe you're going to see a little bit more clearly some of the flaws. Mm-hmm. Maybe you'll hear a couple things that, oh, I didn't realize that's what he actually thought about these things, and that makes me a little uncomfortable. So that's good too. You can get the book for free, so go download the PDF, check it out. Like, there's no reason not to. I am struggling with this one. As I said, I get the argument for the 5-star book. I actually like the Almanac of Naval Ravikant better than this one.
Okay.
I feel like this one had a more clear narrative from beginning to end, but I also feel like the Almanac of Naval Ravikant was a little bit more useful. So using that as my pillar, I feel like this one's not quite as good. So I'm going to rate it as 4 stars, but I don't blame anybody for rating it 5 stars. And the goal of the rating here, like this book in particular, is not an endorsement of I agree with all the ideas.
Agree.
It's the package of presenting a bunch of ideas to you that you can decide for yourself what you think about these. But the ideas that are being presented to you will stretch you. Yep. And that's kind of the whole point.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely. All right, Mike. Let's put the Book of Elon on the shelf. What's next?
Next is something completely different.
Yep.
We're going to read How to Try Again by Steve Kamb. Steve Kamb is somebody I met at Crafts and Commerce. I started going through this one. The very first chapter, he's talking about failure. He has reference to the Museum of Failures, which has a bunch of like products from companies that completely flop. Like Apple has this Pippin video game system that they built back in the day that was a complete failure. So like that's in there. And then as you walk out of the museum, you have all these sticky notes that people like grab a sticky note, write down a way that they failed and stuck it on the wall. He's got a picture of one that says like, I farted in yoga. But the end result is like you're walking through this tunnel with all these sticky notes. Like the whole point is we all fail. What are we going to do with that failure? So it seems like it'll be a very entertaining read. Looking forward to that one.
After that, we're going to do Inside the Box by David Epstein. So David Epstein wrote a bestseller called Range before, author. And this one's about basically can we benefit from narrowing down our options. So that'll be the book after Stephen Kamb's book. Do you have any Gap books, Mike?
I do not. I hope to by next time. I've got some picked out that I want to read, but nothing yet, including Alchemy, which Martin mentioned in the chat by Rory Sutherland. I've had that on my list for a while. I want to dig into that one.
Nice. I also don't have any Gap books right now. I'm going to do some traveling between now and the next episode, and extra reading is just not going to be on the docket for a while. Well, thank you to everybody for listening. We just want to let you know that we did a pro show. The pro show this time was what authors would we want to interview? So we talked about some of the authors that we thought would be interesting to interview. If you're interested in that, it's additional content for the show. We also release the bootleg right after we record, so it's usually about 1 or 2 weeks early. You can get a wallpaper. Mike has shared his reading masterclass, which is about 3-ish hours of additional content on reading. It's $7 a month. It just helps us with the operating costs of running the show, and we appreciate everybody who's willing to sign up for that. If you're interested in that, you can go to bookworm.fm/pro to become a pro member.
All right. If you're reading along with us, pick up How to Try Again by Steve Kamb, and we'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.